So this is it. We could see history in the making.
Feel the rhythm. Feel the rhyme. Get on up. It's bobsled time. Hooray!
Welcome to your online coffee break, where we discuss bite-sized topics that inspire, educate, and entertain. Here's your host, a software innovator, award-winning marketer, and astronomy and space buff, Chuck Fields.
Hello, thanks for joining me today for your online coffee break. Today it's my pleasure to introduce my special guest, Doug E. Doug. Doug E. Doug has an incredible 30-year career as an actor, comedian, director, producer, and a writer. He is well known to movie viewers for his starring role as a Jamaican Bobsledder in the movie Cool Runnings. But he started his amazing career early, at the age of just 17 as a stand-up comic. Doug recently released his first book, called The Fall of '87, a dope novel. It's a standalone mystery about a young black man in Brooklyn who embarks on a spiritual odyssey to...
Online coffee break.
Doug, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is my pleasure. And I'd say I have to be really honest with you. I am really amazed how early you got started. I understand when you were just 17 years old, you were starting on becoming a stand-up comedian. I was just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle beat me by a year. He was 16.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I think it has to do with maybe a troubled childhood. What is a kid doing, in that kind of environment?
Yeah.
But I essentially, I had always had a love for stand-up comedy. Almost a kind of savant kind of interest in it, like really the nuances and, comedians that people thought were obscure, but I thought were
like who?
Dick Shawn, for example.
Okay.
I was a big fan of Dick Shawn.
Wow.
I like comedians that transitioned into being actors and who were who had strong characters that were very indelible. Jonathan Winters.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Fan of Jonathan Winters. So I always I was attracted to that as a kid, and I was always trying to test out routines in the neighborhood, and immediately people were like, you need an outlet or something. You need to go to a stage or something.
Yeah.
And actually, I was a real disruptive force in school, and a principal. His name was Brother James Bonilla, God rest his soul.
Oh, wow.
He was like, people are kicking you out of class and stuff like that. But I think you need to just I'm going to open up assemblies and give you an opportunity to let some of this energy out.
I always wondered because, there's that stereotype of comedians of how you were growing up. So this kind of makes me wonder how you were. So, okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm going to open up the assemblies. I think you have funny things to say, so just say them during assembly, and then you can maybe not do it in class anymore.
That's awesome.
And it turned out to be a brilliant technique because it's about instead of condemning what I was doing, he was saying it was the tact, it was the timing, it was the place to do it.
Yeah. So
he showed me the stage and opened up the stage to me. Then I joined the performing arts. And sort of, I guess the rest is history. I just developed
it's at least if it's an unknown history to me, because 17 years old at the Apollo Theaters when you were first?
Yeah. That
Wow.
year I graduated from high school. I graduated from high school at 17, so I graduated early. But
wow.
That summer I was just didn't, like, what am I going to do with myself? And so I went down to open mics at the various local comedy clubs where so many famous comedians came out of the comic strip and Dangerfields and here in New York City. And so, that time it was Eddie Murphy was very successful. So there was sort of a sense of maybe little young black kids can be funny, like phenomenons,
Yep.
So people were very open to me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I found my way to the Apollo, and then I developed a substantial audience in Harlem, at a local club called the Uptown Comedy Club, which a lot of famous comedians today came out of, black comedians came out of. And so that's how I got to the Apollo. Yeah.
So I think it's neat. And then what was it? You were actually one of your first gigs. I guess you hosted the New Music Report. Can you tell us about that? What is that?
Yes, I got that job working at the Apollo because Russell Simmons saw me at the Apollo, and he said, "Oh, I'm doing this show that's a mixture of comedy and interviews of rap artists and music artists and so forth."
Yeah.
And so he said, he got on his knees actually and said, "Will you host this show for me?"
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah, I was just like, okay. I was a kid, but I think he saw, this would be a person who could translate, very broadly,
Right.
and who understood the hip hop culture at that time and could relate to the artists, etc. And so I did that. And as a matter of fact, he told me, we really don't even have anybody to write it. And I said, I'll write it, not knowing exactly what it meant to write a television show at that time. So I got a couple of my comedian friends and we put together a de facto writer's room. And I ended up being a head writer of a syndicated television show. So
that is just unbelievable.
like
That's
a Forrest
incredible.
Gump of
Oh, wow. And the
black
rest,
comedy.
I think that's just amazing because I guess it's kind of a neat thing too, because we're kind of at that age. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And we're just like, no fear, you went ahead. And I think that's just
exactly
very inspiring. Now I understand as you went in your first movie, so to speak, you got a one-liner in a Spike Lee movie.
Yes, it also came from the Apollo. He saw me at the Apollo, and he said, do you a SAG card? And I'm like, and I lied. I was like, yeah, I didn't even know what a SAG card was. Because it's like, a union card, like, to be an actor. And but he let me be in the movie anyway. I was on the movie for 2 weeks as an extra. And then this is another message for young people. Mm-hmm. I went up to him. I said, "Thank you very much. The last 2 weeks, because I didn't get a line. I said, "Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it." And he was like, "No, you're gonna get a line." So he set up the camera with the last shot of the whole movie, really, just to give me a line, and paid and did what they call Taft-Hartley, which is paid a penalty so that I could be part of the union. So once again, it was this sort of fortuitous thing. And then I got into the actors union like that.
See, and that's wonderful. Now I'm going to flash forward because I know you're doing so much stuff, but I've just got to bring this up. One of my all-time favorite movies, of course, Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
How did that happen for you? Like, how did you audition for that, getting that awesome role that you had as Sanka Coffie? I love the character, of course.
Yeah. Once again, I was doing the New Music Report, and a producer from Walt Disney saw me on the show rolling around on the street with my friend MC Search, Michael Barron. So, and we were just having fun. So he said, "Hey, that little black kid sitting on the floor. I think he could have his own television show." So I got a deal with Walt Disney to do a television show, which I did for ABC called Where I Live. It was on for 2 seasons. So while I was doing that show, I was on the lot.
Yeah.
So someone said, Disney's doing this movie about the Jamaican bobsled team, and I remember, what happened in '88, and my father's from Jamaica, so
exactly. Did that help? With you,
I think so. I think in terms of familiarity with the accent and feeling comfortable, contriving a kind of accent that would be, digestible and understandable to audiences, but not be, ring totally untrue. So
okay, I'm going to interrupt you there if I can, Dougie. I just it's calling me. I got to do it. Sanka, are you dead?
Yeah, man.
There you go. Bucket list crossed off right there.
There you go.
I'm so sorry. So anyway, so your father, obviously Jamaican, that helped you with the role. It's a fantastic role. What was it like on the set? Because it looks like, and I know it's obviously movie editing, but it looks like you guys were having so much fun.
Oh, we were having a lot of fun. I mean, it was great because it's this international production. We were shooting in Canada, we're shooting in Jamaica. It's just like a strange way to entree into the film business. It's like all of a sudden you're like, you're doing a movie in 2 countries, so it was great. We were having a great time. We were, I was in great shape because they did like training, and we were training together and making jokes, and we just thought it was just a nice gig. I didn't think, I don't think anybody understood that it was going to be this kind of global sensation. and
Oh, yeah.
endure for so many years and in so many different countries. It's incredible.
It is timeless. Now, when you were filming it, were you actually in Calgary at that time? Because I know you actually went back
Yes.
to Calgary in 2013.
I did.
What was
yes.
that like going back there after all that time?
It was nostalgic, but it was also very powerful in a sense because it's a meaningful movie to many people for many different reasons throughout the world. But Calgary has a very special meaning because it's essentially a story about them and about their kindness and the ways in which they embraced these men. And so, I remembered how kind and wonderful that they were when I went back. So, oh, wow, I could live here if it wasn't so cold.
Sorry, I'm just cutting now to the scene where you're in the freezer with your wonderful, which I wish I could do that with my hair, honestly. Take off a piece. But that was awesome.
Me too now.
Oh, I hear you. Let me ask you this, if I can. What was it like working with John Candy? I mean, he's another great comedian, and here you are. You're kind of early in your career, I guess, and you're working next to him. What was that like? Any memories you can share about him?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, he took me to my first hockey game, which was quite a thrill.
Awesome.
I always say he was an angel on earth, frankly, and one of the sweetest, nicest, warmest guys that I've met, not only in show business, but in my life. He was a beautiful, beautiful person. He was always such a cheerleader for us in terms of the guys and trying to get us to be treated appropriately and nicely, because sometimes show business can be kind of a meat market and a exploitative thing, and he was very conscientious about making sure we were treated properly, because there's a hierarchy. He was at the top of the food chain, and but he never made anybody feel bad, and he was just a beautiful person.
Oh, see, that's wonderful. Now,
yeah.
Now, I tell you, I have special memories of him, of course, but Cool Runnings, you've done so much since then. But what I really wanted to kind of jump forward to is I was really impressed that you've just come out with a book in January. Yes. It's called The Fall of '87, a dope novel. Now, I was just wondering, can you give just our audience a general synopsis of the book in your words?
Yes. It's a story about a period in time in American history in the late 80s during what has been referred to as the crack epidemic.
Right.
And it's about a young man who is in this environment and who is trying to get out of what he's doing, which is not a good thing that he's doing. Mm-hmm. And something happens in his life that causes him to have to retrace the steps of his brother who has passed away. And he tries to learn about not only what happened to him, but he learns about what kind of person he really was through his retracing of the steps and listening to the people who encountered him during his last weeks of life.
Wow. Now, Doug, I understand this is your first book ever. It's a mystery. What was it like writing your first book? Was that a challenge for you? Because I got to admit, if I've heard right, you actually have worked as a summer school English teacher and writing coach. So was this just a natural progression for you?
It was. I've always been thinking about, I studied literature at school at NYU. And, I'd always been in my mind saying, one day I'm going to write a book, and I, especially after reading certain kinds of books, were very inspirational. I loved English literature, so I liked the way that sort of worlds were created by authors like Jane Austen and George Eliot and so forth. And so I was always like, man, I think I can write something that's seeped in Black culture during a certain period that has this kind of folksy cultural dynamic where people get an intimate understanding of how these communities work and don't work, as opposed to the sort of stereotypes and the sort of things that cause people to be very afraid of one another.
I hear you loud and clear.
The peddling of stereotypes or what have you.
Oh yeah, we have so much. I hear Walter Mosley is also.
God, yes! I think that's my favorite writer of all time, is Walter Mosley. I just think that he's such a clever kind of writer because especially the Easy Rollins books, they're basically historical fiction in a sense, because they're very thoughtful about the way they immerse characters in a place and time. And of course he explores aspects of Black culture that people may or may not have access to, and then they develop a sort of intimate understanding of the culture. So I like that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I hear, that's kind of a passion of yours, is to sort of get out the word, represent the hip hop culture in that. So I just think that's wonderful. How's the book helping along with that?
I think it's doing well. I think that people who do read it, particularly people who are not intimately knowledgeable or part of that community, I think they develop with a lot of insights about the inner workings of people. Particularly, like the book is focused on a 19-year-old drug dealer, former drug dealer. So and it's a first-person narrative. So it's like you're in his head and in his mind for a significant period of time. Now, what opportunity would one person have for that? So it's like, but I think that it's sort of, I guess, what they call a picaresque novel, in the sense of it's this idea of a person from the underclass that survives by their wits, and so you over time you realize how brilliant they really are. And so I think that it was a very important. That's the thing I observed when I lived in Bed-Stuy in the '80s. That some of these guys that I knew could have been in just about anything, but of course, because of this kind of exposure and lack of education, etc., they just ended up fulfilling their lowest order needs. So. It's about human potential, and about if people are given opportunity and a chance to develop properly. Barack Obama. Whatever. Anybody can be anything.
Absolutely. Now this is obviously kind of a strange time. I know you're obviously not doing any book signings now, but I commend you. You're actually doing some book readings on Facebook. Can you tell us more about just what you're doing to sort of promote the book at this time?
Yes. I'm doing I'm calling the Pandemic Book Club online at my my name is Douglas Bourne, but it's on Facebook, and I'm just reading selected pieces, not only from my book, but from things that I think are germane to the times, things that could be inspirational. A lot of stuff from the Harlem Renaissance. There's a play that I directed. So I'm reading some selections from that, but I'm going to be reading from anything I think that could be potentially uplifting or insightful during this period. Since we're already in this process of thinking about how to be together and live together, I think it's important that we also get some insight into some extra insight into who we are and what our lives might be like. And I think that could be an aid to people during this period, because when we're looking at people, we're not just looking at them with sympathy or pity or what have you, but we're looking at them with real understanding. And I think I can try to aid that through reading or through anything. I'd like to do that.
Well, Doug, that's wonderful. And your book is available now on Amazon, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes for this episode too. So if anyone wants to go get that, please, I highly recommend it. Doug, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. We want to wish you just the best of luck with your book and your career. And again, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Best to you and your family, and good health to everyone.
Online coffee break.
Wow, I really enjoyed my conversation with Doug, and I encourage you to check out his book on Amazon. It's called The Fall of '87, a dope novel. Check it out today. If you love mystery novels, it's sure to be a great read. Anyway, I want to thank Doug for joining me today. I want to thank you for taking time to join us as well. If you like this episode, and we hope you do, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on a podcast application, if you can just rate us there, we would really appreciate it. And of course, we always appreciate it if you could share this episode with a friend. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time. God bless.